Welcome. I'm going to put a small series together here called, we'll just call it the 91 Super Jag project. And really what we're going to do is we're going to be looking as I try to attempt to restore 1991 Arctic Cat Super Jag. Welcome. I'm going to put a small series together here called, we'll just call it the 91 Super Jag project. And really what we're going to do is we're going to be looking as I try to attempt to restore 1991 Arctic Cat Super Jag. Now the Super Jag, from what I was able to read about it, is it's a 440 fan powered Arctic Cat machine with a very long track. These little sleds are very light. They got a lot of flotation. They got wide skis on them. They got a wide, long track. I think it weighs around 400 pounds total, the machine. It's a lot lighter than my big machine that you see over behind, which I think tips the scales at it's around 630 pounds. Now, that one has a 136-inch track, and it does have a fair amount of flotation. The Super Jag has it has a lot more flotation because of the longer track. Parts on it are pretty hard to find, so some of the parts I'm probably going to have to try to make myself or scour internet wrecking forums and stuff like that to try to be able to pull them together. I'll put some pictures up of when I first found it here. So this is what it looked like when we first found it. It was sitting in a covered pole shed where someone has stored it now. Full disclosure here, I know the history of this sled. I know who owned it, and I actually, we used this sled in 2016, so about 3 years ago when we were caribou hunting up north. And at that time it had a lot of problems because it was flooding out, and it was, I think we had ice. It had a lot of problems getting fuel, and then once we get fuel, it got too much fuel and it flooded out, and then it would take forever for it to be able to restart it. And the gentleman who was with us is pretty knowledgeable when it comes to small equipment repairs, so he knew what he was doing with it. He was able to keep it running, but it was very problematic and it wasn't highly reliable. So what I'm trying to do with this machine is I want to be able to go deep in the backcountry here, just to do some camping and some ice fishing, and 2 sleds increases the safety factor, and it also lets me bring someone else along on those trips. So that was kind of the reason behind getting it. Now the price of the sled, I'm not into it for a lot. I'm into it for a bottle of whiskey. So I think that's a pretty good trade so far. Actually, I've spent probably about $130, about $140 since then on a few pieces of parts for it. Primarily some, picked up a carb needle, some spark plugs, fuel filter, fuel lines, and that. So we'll take a look under the hood. I'll show you what state it's in currently. This is the first of the series we'll go through. Today we'll talk about some of the changes I've done on the carburetor, some of the stuff I've done working with it. I'll show you the old needle that I pulled out of it, and we'll talk about some of the things that I'm going to do, some of my steps that I'm going to take. Very first step I want to get is, of course, make sure it runs, and make sure it runs fairly reliably. Once we get that done, then we'll start on some of the cosmetic sides of it, and we'll start working from there and see how far we want to go with it. Don't want to put a lot of money in it. I know the value, if I parted out right now, where the value sits. Kind of giving myself that value is about the amount I'll sink in. I don't think I'll put more than about $700 into this. Any more than that, and I won't be able to break even on it. So let's go over the sled and see what it is. All right, so let's take a look inside, see where we're at. So I have taken the fuel line out off of here, from the fuel to here. I have taken that off, as well as the fuel filter, because I'll show you the fuel filter in a minute. The carburetor here, I did pull it apart. I've given it a good cleaning and put it back in. The air box is off right now just because, that's how I needed it to get in there. Changing out the spark plugs. I did do compression on the machine. compression's 130 each side, so it seems to be doing pretty good. Clutches are in pretty rough shape. Well, there's quite a bit of wear in them, and that, but they need to be cleaned. Like I say, I know it was running, a few years ago when we used it, and the issues it had then was primarily on the carb. I'll show you one of the reasons that I know there was a lot of issues in the carb. But so what do we got? Well, do we know what it's needs to be done? Well, Windows seen better days. There's a lot of UV damage on some of the plastics on here. The window's pretty broken, so I think it's cracked on the other side. I did put a little polish on here just to kind of see if I could bring some of it back. I might bring some of it back. Let's see. So it was cracked over here. Seat has definitely seen better days, and that needs to be replaced and recovered. But that I'm not even going to even think about getting anyone to do that until I know it runs. The console bezel, like the plastic on the console here, was faded. Gas cap needs a new top in it because it's broken, so stuff gets in it. Gaskets are both shot on both the gas tanks. There was some pretty disgusting looking yellowy orange fuel type substance that was in the tank that got flushed out of it. Here's the airbox for it here on the back. The track itself, now, track is okay. They're pretty small lugs on it. Sliders are fairly new. I know they were replaced not that long ago, and most of the suspension, there's not a ton of suspension on it, but we'll check it. We'll give it a good check out and go through it. Part of one of the really interesting things that I had this thing for was in order to go through this, I wanted to be able to play on something that I can try things on this machine, where if I screw it up, I'm not out a ton of money. Whereas if I tried to do it on that machine, then I'd be out a lot more money. So we'll go through and we'll make sure all the bogies, all the wheels, all the bearings work, and if we need to change the odd one, we'll look at it at that point and see whether or not we want to put the money into it. Like I say, a lot of it is just making sure I don't put too much into it. You can see the big wide skis and skins on them, but it's kind of a neat little machine. Front's probably hit a few things in its days. Been fixed up a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if it's a little out, needs moved a little bit, or what. Not too sure on that. Maybe the other side got pushed back. Maybe it hit a tree or something. I'm not really too sure. Anyways, let's take a look at the fuel system and the needle that I took out. Okay. A couple of the components, like I said, I already cleaned the carb and put it back in. I'm not going to yank it out just for a video, but I did want to go over a couple of things that I did change. I did buy a new needle and seat for it. The reason I bought a new needle is, see if we can get a good view on this here. Let me see if I can get this. I might take a photo of it maybe later, but I think we can get there. Can you see on the edges there how the edges of the needle, little hooks on them on these ends right there, little hooks on them. I don't know if you can kind of see. Let me see if I can get something dark on the background here. I don't know, maybe this will work. Okay, you see the little edges there? So what it was doing is these little edges, most of the times when I've seen these needles, they've been flat. These ones are worn down. So what that was allowing to do, so the little needle sits in like that, and then the little float arm comes across on it. Let me see if I can get this like this. And it rides on here. But what this did is it allowed it to shift around inside here and move. And the float arm, the gentleman who had it done before had bent the float arm quite dramatically down, that little piece that sits on top of it. bent it down so that it would ride on this. And that would make a lot of sense given when I know we were up north. Like I said, once we got it going and we had put gasoline antifreeze in it, and once we got it going, it would flood out, and it would flood out really bad. So I did suspect right away the carb would need some issues, and with this moving around in here, that was a big one. The new needle and seat, once I put both the new needle seat in there, it doesn't move around like this. So, you know, I can't wait to fire it up and see how it works. I did replace the gasket on there. Probably could still use that, but I replaced it anyways. The key the thing came with is busted off on the inside. Bought a couple new keys, only to find out that that key is probably still inside the lock or inside the ignition. So I've got to try to get the ignition off before I can even try these. They don't give the keys away. All right. So after pouring out the gas in there, I looked at this. I could tell when I looked at it, I could see it wasn't looking that good. You can see how all the sludge that was in here, in that line, just really disgusting looking stuff. So we got that. Got a new fuel filter. Got some new fuel line. So we're gonna try to put some of that in there today. And one of the other things is, this is the console, the plastic for the console now. Some of the part that was covered is still clear, but this part is really faded, and I think it's UV damage. I don't think I'm going to be able to like polish or buff it up to get that cloudy out of there. When I look through on the side, it really looks like it's UV damage that's gone through on there. I'll try it. I'll give it a try to see if I can bring that plastic back, but if not, I'll just get some 3mm plastic and I'll cut it to the right shape, because I'm not going to try ordering it anywhere to get that. I pulled the old spark plugs out. They were just oily. So we got to put a new fuel filter on. We got to put some fuel in it, and then we got to fire it up and see. And we'll change the carbs, put a new fuel filter on, put fresh gas in it. We'll see if we can get it to fire up. If we can get that to fire up, I think we'll be doing all right. Then we can move on to the next steps, which then starts to deal with some of the more cosmetic stuff and making sure that, you know, change the cane case oil and lube it up and stuff like that. Change the belt, clean the clutches. Anyways, that's the start of the Super Jag project. I hope you enjoy it. If you do have any comments, if you're pretty knowledgeable when it comes to these particular items, feel free to drop a message down in the comments there and point me in the right direction, especially if I'm having any difficulties. Enjoy. I do like the team clutches a lot better.